I feel like sports games are some of the most underappreciated games that are released. They come out every single year, and there are the same old tired criticisms thrown at every single major sports game, year after year. It's just PGA Tour again. It's just FIFA again. It's just MLB The Show again. It's just NBA 2K again. It's just Madden again. This is pretty much just a way of saying that this new game is pretty much the same thing as this old game. Yeah, what were you expecting, the Mona Lisa of video games? When the next sports game in the NHL 2K, or FIFA, or PGA Tour, or MLB The Show, or NBA 2K, or Madden series releases, the game that came before is forgotten about. Nothing but a fleeting thought. Sports games are so easy to forget about, because these sports games are pumped out so frequently, and all that seems to happen when a new sports game in a particular series is released is they update the stats on the teams, they update the team's rosters, and they update the players' stats. Every game in a particular sports game franchise is essentially the same, but who really cares? If you feel like buying the newest game in a sports game series isn't worth it, then you don't have to buy it. Whether that be because the game isn't worth the price, or you feel they didn't change enough from the previous game, the sports games you may have still have tons of fun to be had. Or if you're looking for sports games to play, but you don't want to pay full price for the newest sports games, then you can always buy and play older sports games. Most of them are pretty inexpensive to buy, unless you really want to play NBA Elite 11. But most of these old sports games can be found on eBay, or the used game sections in bargain bins in brick-and-mortar stores. So if you feel compelled enough to jump headfirst into the bargain bin of your local GameStop because you saw a copy of FIFA 16, I won't judge you. Another positive to sports games is, due to every game in a sports game series being basically the same, you can essentially jump into any game a part of a sports game series. What I like about these games is that they're really easy to understand. They are by far some of the most user-friendly games. You can pick up a controller, and in just a few short minutes you can start playing. It's not like many other games where if you're new to a game series, you have to go through an overly long tutorial to learn the ropes of how to play. These games have pretty basic controls and gameplay elements, so a tutorial may not even be necessary. But tutorials and controller layouts are always present in these games if you really need them, and the controls for a sports game series are essentially the same throughout most of the installments in the series. So if you go from playing NHL 2K5 to NHL 2K20, there's not much you have to learn in terms of what certain buttons do and different gameplay mechanics. Once you play one game in a series of sports games, you can pretty much play any other game a part of that same series without issue. That's one thing sports games do really well. They succeed in being accessible to almost everybody. Another great thing about sports games is that they're on most consoles, except a lot of Nintendo consoles, which never have a lot of sports games released on them, which I find to be very odd, because Nintendo consoles seem to appeal to the more general audience, and so do sports games. So putting as many sports games on Nintendo platforms as possible seems like a no-brainer. But Nintendo is very selective about what sports games are on their consoles. For example, Nintendo put a lot of Madden games on the Wii and DS, but after that they only put one Madden game on the 3DS, and one Madden game on the Wii U, but there hasn't been a Madden game on a Nintendo platform since. And also, we can't forget that for the longest time, MLB The Show was exclusive to PlayStation consoles. In my opinion, that's a weird game series for PlayStation to have exclusive rights to, but thankfully MLB The Show has recently gone multi-platform. First with MLB The Show 21 on the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. Then MLB The Show got its first release on a Nintendo platform when MLB The Show 22 came to the Nintendo Switch. But all the other major sports game series, like FIFA, PGA Tour, and NBA 2K have all gotten sporadic releases across many Nintendo platforms. Aside from those two examples, most sports game series are available on all Xbox and PlayStation consoles at the very least. So I would say these sports game series are available to the majority of people on most consoles. Another great thing about sports games is that they're a lot of fun to play with others. Because of their simple nature, it's easy to get some friends together and play any number of sports games. I can't tell you the number of times I've spent playing Madden all night with friends. Sports games always seem to get left out of the conversation when people talk about fun multiplayer games. And I'm also of the opinion that you don't have to like sports to enjoy playing a sports game. Sure, it may make you like sports games more, but I feel like sports games are so simple that you barely need to know any of the rules of how to play a certain sport to enjoy playing a sports game. These sports games seem to streamline the gameplay quite effectively, making them easily understandable to the average person. And these games also don't require much skill, so I think even your average Joe could get some enjoyment out of playing sports games. I also think sports games have great replay value. You can essentially play any sports game until the end of time, because these games are not story-based. I would say they're more arcadey in nature. For example, you can play through career modes in sports games, where you try and win the most games and try and get the best overall record, just like trying to get the best high score on an arcade game. And that's why I find career mode in most sports games a lot of fun. And if career mode gets too stale for you, you can always up the difficulty. And for me, that usually makes career mode fresh and exciting again. I also like the extra modes in sports games like these. For example, some sports games have mini games in them. Sure, not all sports games have mini games in them, which is a damn shame. But when sports games do have mini games in them, they are quite fun to play. Sports games overall are simple games that anyone can pick up and play. And I think that's what makes them so great. The easiest games to understand can be the games that you have the most fun with. And I think sports games have simple but fun gameplay, and for that reason, I think they're great to play with others. But they don't have to have deep gameplay or mechanics to be fun, and I don't really understand why they get so much hate.